You know to go on YouTube. I'll go on YouTube just in a minute. See if we we're on. We're live. All right, perfect. All right, let's clap it up. All right. Shalom, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shah Barakatah, Barakathum to all the Akim out there. Yahweh Shamar Alathan Bahashim, Yahweh Shah to all the sisters, the Akwathian out there. This is the ISUPK Scripture Breakdown for Baltimore. What we're going to do tonight, as we all know, today is the massacre day known as Thanksgiving. We're going to actually go through. We're actually going to go through and look at we're going to go through the facts regarding Thanksgiving. We're going to go through it. We're going to talk about, should the black man, Hispanic man, and Native man really celebrate this holiday or this massacre day? Is it appropriate for us to observe it? I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to celebrate Thanksgiving just for the food. I'm going to celebrate Thanksgiving just to get with family members. I'm going to just celebrate Thanksgiving because it's a time where, we can, come together as one, in fellowship. And we're going to weigh the matters. Is that a good reason to celebrate or observe this day? What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in the form of a teacher. I'm going to go through the historical context of Thanksgiving because I don't think people really know the historical context behind Thanksgiving. All we really hear is we hear two sides. We hear, there's a lot of myths to Thanksgiving, and we hear there was a lot of massacre to Thanksgiving, but we're going to actually go through it, and we're going to be, We're going to try to be objective with the matter. Of course, you can't really find too many things that are going to be objective because most things aren't subjective. But we're going to just try to go through the historical look at it, and we're going to look at it from a biblical point of view, afterwards if we have enough time. And we're just going to weigh the facts. All right. Well, in order to understand Thanksgiving, you got to go back, of course, before Thanksgiving. You really want to go back to when the Europeans started coming over into what they would call the New World. We could first start with the Portuguese. The Portuguese were ones that were going into different continents, of course, and they were finding natural resources. And then you had the Spanish. The Spanish were going into different territories, especially places called Mexico. They were going in places like South America, Central America, and really the English were the English were looking at all these other countries, and they wanted their share too. Now, we got to understand why these countries in Europe were coming pretty much into these lands. A lot of people will say, well, they were trying to spread Christianity. Well, they were trying to get a new start. That's all and good, but you got to look at the proof in the pudding. There was really a few reasons why the explorers were coming into these new worlds. They wanted free land. That's number one. They wanted free labor. Free labor means they wanted to find new land, and then they wanted somebody to work on that land. They didn't want to work on it. Remember, they had just come out of the Dark Ages. This is around the time of the Renaissance. This is the time where they were pretty much putting, blacks out of Europe. This is the time where the European countries were kind of coming out of the Dark Ages and the feudalism and all these other things, and now they wanted a fresh start. Well, in order to get a fresh start, they wanted new land. They wanted to find new territory where they could expand their empires. So, and the land that they felt like they touched, they felt like it was theirs. So they wanted free land, and they wanted free labor, and that means they wanted people to work on it. And they also wanted natural resources. So if you go back and you find that the Portuguese were going into the continents of Africa, and then you had the Spanish that were coming all into the lands of the West Indies, what they would call, or the Caribbean islands, South America. They were all into Mexico, and the Spanish even went to Florida. You had even the French going up into Canada, even certain parts, I think, where Louisiana is. So you had them all going there. Well, the English, of course, under Queen Elizabeth, also wanted a fresh start. Queen Elizabeth definitely wanted to expand her empire. Okay, and then you had different English that were also coming, and because you got to remember at this time, England was at war with Spain. England and Spain were beefing. Okay, as countries, they were always fighting each other. They were pirates were attacking other pirate ships. So the English knew that the Spanish were all up and down this territory. So the English wanted a piece of their pie too. So the English came over here, and we know the story. They tried different colonies, different settlements. One of the colonies was the lost tribe of the, what was the tribe of? Roanoke. Was the lost colony, with John White, and then set up a colony over in where it's like North Carolina. And John White left and came back 3 years later, and the colony disappeared. And people don't know. And then, in 1607, the Virginia Company sent, some more English over here, and they had the settlement of Jamestown. So the Virginia Company in England, wanted to expand the English crown. So we have to go back there. Okay, we go back there. So, of course, the English knew when they were coming into these new lands, supposedly, that they were running into what they would call natives. And there was hundreds of thousands of them all around the part of this world. There were hundreds of thousands of them. But just like the Spanish, the English felt that the territories that they set up was theirs. I mean, that's just a matter of fact of it. That's why when the settlement in 1607 was called Jamestown. They set it up in honor of King James. They didn't ask the people that lived there, the great Powhatan and his tribes, well, what do y'all call this place? What's this place called? What can we do to help? They didn't. They set up establishments and they said it's ours. So we got to understand that in mind. And when they were setting up these establishments, they were kidnapping natives. Because the idea was for the natives to work on these lands that they took. Okay? And of course, they heard all the stories of the gold that the Spanish were finding in Mexico. So this was all going on. They heard of all these things. So, of course, they wanted to find gold themselves. Okay? We're just trying to get a little historical context and background of what was going on. We can't just start at Thanksgiving. So, now, the natives were very aware of these new white colonists that were coming into their territory because there was a lot of trading going on. Okay? There was some trading for years, and even in the 1500s, between the colonists and the natives that were on the eastern part of the now known United States. Up in the Massachusetts area, all the way down to the Carolinas, there was trading on the coast. So the natives were pretty much familiar with these white colonists by the 1600s. They were kind of familiar of them coming and trading. They would trade furs and other stuff. So now we get to this, now we get to the so-called pilgrims, okay? Well, at that time, they weren't called pilgrims. They were called separatists. They wanted to separate from, the Church of England. They wanted to separate and come over here. Now, everybody says that they wanted to come over here to practice their religion freely, but we got to look at the facts. It's the same thing that all the other colonists came over here. Free land, free labor, natural resources. Those are the three reasons. There was nothing outside of that, okay? Because if it was outside of that, the natives would still have their lands today. They don't. Con, go ahead. I'm going to say something.
Their name again before the pilgrims were, what did you call
them? They were called separatists. They weren't called pilgrims till later on. They were known as separatists.
Separatists.
Yes, they were separatists. So the separatists came over here, okay? My memory's not as good, but around 1620, they came over here. 1619, 1620. Now, before, I want to actually go back. No, actually, let's move forward. When the separatists came over here, they came to a village that pretty much was called a Patuxet village. Now, the Patuxet village was pretty much abandoned, and there was still a lot of dead native bodies there. because the Patuxet native tribe was completely wiped out by the disease of the Europeans that came before them. It was hundreds and thousands of natives that died. Historians are not fully aware of what disease that these settlers, these colonists were bringing over. Some say, certain type of fevers, but it was killing them. And a lot of them were wiped out. The Patuxet tribe that village that the separatists came to was a Patuxet tribe that was completely wiped out. Go ahead.
So, Con, just to get understanding, way before even this Thanksgiving even popped up, even a situation that even begin even the thought of them celebrating the feast, Englishmen was already coming over, killing, taking land, taking resources.
So and we're going to say different. We're going to say different Europeans: Spanish, French, English. The natives were already kind of familiar by 1620. The natives were familiar with the white man, the oppressor coming here on their shores, because there was like years of trading between them. There was years of trading furs and and there was other settlements that the English and others made attempts and tried to make certain settlements along the coast.
Okay.
So they were familiar. It wasn't just like, I've never seen these white. They were pretty familiar that whites would come on the coast and trade, or maybe even try to set up or kidnap. Okay, so it wasn't maybe like a shocker, like I've never seen a white man before. That was probably more in the earlier 15 or 1400s, but by 1600, it was more, it was familiarity that these strangers were coming onto the shores. Go ahead.
So they slowly built some type of familiarity with.
It wasn't like, I'm not saying that they knew all about them, but there was a familiarity that these oppressors would come to the shores, would kidnap natives, would kill, and had diseases, because they were bringing over lots of diseases that was just killing natives, because the natives didn't have immunity to that. So pretty much when the separatists came around 1619, 1620, I think it was 1619, it could be wrong, off by a year or two. When they came, they had come to an abandoned native village. That's actually where they set up their fort at, because all the Patuxet natives were dead because of the disease that came there. It completely wiped it out. And they pretty much disrespected that site by just building on top of, and that's why Commander General Hanna makes the point that he says, the bones of the natives cry from the earth of what the oppressor did, because they would do things like this. They pretty much, that Patuxet village was like a graveyard of dead native bodies of people abandoned, and they built a fort right on it. They built a colony right there on it. We're disrespecting those natives that died. So that's pretty much, let's start there. So they came and they built their fort there. Okay, they built their fortress. They built a colony on the Patuxet Old Village. When they started building, of course, the colonists were not doing well. A lot of times when the early colonists came over to this country, most of them would die because they couldn't survive the winters. The seeds that they brought over from their country was not really growing. They really couldn't grow crops. And most of the time, the natives would come and help them survive. Even if you look at the Jamestown settlement, by the first few months, when those colonists, English colonists, more than half had died by the winter. More than half, thanks to Pocahontas and her people and her father, the Powhatan. They're the reason why that early English settlement survived, because they were feeding them through the winters and stuff. It got so bad that they started eating dead bodies. They started being cannibalistic. They started eating the dead bodies or bodies of the dead dogs that they had. It started getting bad. So by 1620, of course, or 1619, the separatists had built their village, okay, or fortress. They had built their fortress. And then all of a sudden, now, when they arrived here, we got to understand the historical context again. They were already being watched. The Wampanoag, so they were in Wampanoag territory. Okay, that was the tribe that they were in. They were on Patuxet territory, but they were being watched by the Wampanoag sachem or leader Osama Quinn. He was watching them closely. Now, let's talk about Osama Quinn, because we want to get the historical context of Thanksgiving. Osama Quinn's tribe, the Wampanoags, were also heavily devastated by the diseases that came in and killed all those natives along that coast. His tribe was really, really, like, pretty much decimated. A lot of his people had died. So when the colonists arrived, Osama Quinn had a dilemma. Okay? He had a dilemma that he was dealing with. He was like, in his mind, he had to either, I got to fight these colonists, or I can make an alliance with them against my enemy tribes. At that time, the Wampanoags had an enemy tribe called the Narragansetts. Okay? And the Narragansett was an enemy tribe. And at that point, Osama Quinn, he was in a dilemma. Do I make an alliance with this group to help me defend my tribe against the Narragansetts, or do I go to war with these people? So he was watching the colonists closely when they arrived. He was watching them, probably trying to calculate, who they were, trying to find out more intelligence. And in fact, when the colonists were here, or separatists, the oppressor, let's just call them what they really are. When the oppressor arrived here, after a while, a native showed up in their village, and his name was Samoset. Now, Samoset could speak a little bit of English. He could speak a little bit of English, and I think Osama Quinn is the one that sent him, okay? Or some people call him Massasoit, but, Osama Quinn, I'll call him that. Sent him to kind of find a little bit more intel of these colonists. Why were they there? What was their intentions? And a lot of times, this is what would happen with natives. They would come and try to find the intentions of the oppressor, and the oppressor would make a treaty with them, lie to them, and kill them, and take their land. That's pretty much the cycle of what would happen. Okay? Now, that's pretty much the cycle. There'd be a treaty made, and sometimes the natives would attack the oppressor when he came over here because they knew stories of how the oppressor was. They knew the oppressor's intention to attack and get him out of there. That would happen too. But Samoset came to the village. What surprised the oppressor was that he could speak a little bit of English. His English wasn't the best, but he could communicate with the colonists. He learned English, I think, by himself doing trading. So some of them learned English by trading with some of the earlier, oppressors. So Samoset knew some English. And then I believe Samoset returned, and he returned with a man named Squanto. Okay, now Squanto, I don't know, we've learned about him in school. Squanto was a very pivotal character in this whole story. Squanto could speak English very well. And the reason Squanto could speak English, now what's funny about Squanto is that the colonists, the separatists, were living in his old village. That's the village of his ancestors, the Patuxets. Squanto was a Patuxet. And pretty much, Squanto, years earlier, was kidnapped by an Englishman. He kidnapped him and sold him into Spain. Well, while he was over there, and then he was put into England. He learned English over those several years that he was kidnapped. He got his way back over here to his homeland, but when he got back, his village was gone because of the disease. So he was kidnapped as a young man, got sent to Spain, got to England, came back. When we came back, his village was gone. His whole village was gone, and he started living among the Wampanoags. Okay, he started living with them. Okay, but when he came and met the colonists, the separatists, they were living in his old village. That's where he was from. But he could speak English pretty well. So Squanto was pretty much the liaison, kind of like the communication between the Wampanoags and these English separatists. He was kind of like the glue, the connect. Now, what happened is that pretty much the English, were pretty much, and scholars are pretty much, they're not very clear what happened at this point, but we know the English sat down to have a meal, and we know that the Wampanoags showed up. Okay, we don't know if they were invited. We don't know if they were trying to check out the scene. But Osama Quinn showed up with between 60 and 90 men. He showed up. And Squanto, as the communicator, the oppressor told Squanto to tell Osamoquim that we are here in peace, and we're going to have peace between the two. Excuse me. We're going to have peace between the two tribes, between the separatists and the Wampanoags. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on. Because the English said pretty much that we come in peace. Now we got to remember that in the story. We come in peace. Okay, that's why we're here. That's what Osamoquin heard. We are here to be peaceful and to make an alliance. They sat down. They made an agreement. The Wampanoags agreed, and the Wampanoags agreed to protect the colonists while they were here. The colonists also agreed to defend the Wampanoags. They would have a defense with each other. They would protect each other from enemies. So it was an alliance. There was an alliance that they would defend each other. Okay, that is the core of the Thanksgiving. There was supposed to be an alliance between. Now, let's see. I want you to know something too. That they actually didn't just meet once and have an agreement and having a peace agreement. They actually met a couple times. And in one of those agreements, the Wampanoags agreed not to interfere with the English colonists when they would massacre or interfere if there was a problem they had with the Pequots. Now, I want you to think about this, because the Pequots was another tribe, Tawada too. Tawada says. That was part of the alliance too, that they wouldn't interfere with the Pequot if there was a problem with the Pequot tribe. We're gonna need to know that too, because it's very interesting. We got to know how crafty the oppressor is. The oppressor, now different tribes at that time didn't look at each other as the same type of people, but the oppressor, because he's as crafty as he was taking this opportunity to have the tribes war against each other, and then he would take them all out. That's how crafty he is. Because, and we see this today. The oppressor will get, people to fight against each other or to be at war with each other. He does that with black men nowadays. Look at Kyrie. I mean, remember when we saw Shaq and Charles up there on the panelists? We saw the one oppressor in the middle, and then, he's kind of the one having the strings and having Shaq and Charles talk about Kyrie. And he sits there in the background and lets it happen. And just lets them destroy each other, and then he comes and destroys everybody. Well, this was the oppressor's tactics when he came over to this country. He would use one tribe against another tribe, and after they destroyed each other, then he would destroy everybody else that got in his way. And this is what happened. Okay, and this is why a lot of native tribes were destroyed. Because the oppressor, the conquistador, would use an enemy tribe or use another tribe to find out the one tribe's secrets. Then they would kill that tribe, and they would turn around and betray the tribe that helped them. This is why the natives started saying that the oppressor taught with a forked tongue. You never could trust him. All the treaties he made, he broke. All the treaties he made, he broke. And it's the same thing with this story about Thanksgiving. Okay? Part of the alliance was that they would look out and protect each other. Okay? And then maybe, the Wampanoags wouldn't interfere if they had a war with another tribe. But this was all part of it. But let's go on with the story. Well, then what happened? Okay? I'd say, for a little bit, there was peace between the two tribes. But, like we said, what was the reason why they came over here? Free land, free labor, natural resources. So after a while, Osamoquim dies, and then he has his children come up, and his grandchildren. And what did the colonists start to do? They started to take natives and started to take Wampanoag lands. They started to break that alliance. And then they also started to massacre Pequots. It was the Big Pequot Massacre in the 1630s. And then they started breaking more and taking on more and more lands. Well, this was not protecting the Wampanoags. That was the agreement. We protect each other. Well, they weren't protecting the Wampanoags. They started taking Wampanoag lands. And then they started taking everybody's land. Because that was the point of why they came over here in the first place. They weren't coming over here, I want to practice religion. That's not why they came over here. They came over here because they saw how the Spanish took Mexico. They saw that. They knew the stories. They knew the stories about how they took Mexico. Okay? So they knew all of that stuff. They knew what was going on. So they wanted to follow suit. The English. They wanted their piece of the pie. And so what happened? After a while, the Wampanoags and other tribes, like the Narragansetts, who were enemy tribes, and other tribes, got together and was like, we've had enough. And then there became a big war between the colonists and those native tribes. Okay. And that had to do with Osamakwen's son, and that's why it's called King Philip's War. Osamakwen's son was known as King Philip. I think it was his grandson, actually. And there was a big all-out war years down the line. And the war ended, of course, the colonists got the upper hand and just, subdued King Philip, cut off his head, and, the so-called alliance between the Wampanoags and pretty much the colonists was pretty much, dismantled. And that's pretty much, and so when we think of Thanksgiving, we got to think of pretty much what really happened. What really happened is that it was a treaty broken. If we want to get to the root of Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving was about a treaty between the separatists and the Wampanoags, that they would look out for each other and help each other. However, we know from history that the oppressor had a different plan in mind. And his plan in mind was to pretty much take lands and destroy and take the natives and have them as slaves. And that's what happened. The colonists would take native lands, take them as slaves. And that's why it's very hurtful around this time of year for Wampanoag people, tribes people, because they know the history around Thanksgiving. So now, the question is, should people celebrate Thanksgiving? Now, when I say people, I'm actually going to say this. People might be shocked when I say this. I understand why certain groups celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm going to tell you why. The oppressor celebrating Thanksgiving is really them celebrating their victory over the blacks, Hispanics, and natives. So that's why they would celebrate it. That's why it actually makes sense that they sit around and have a meal. Now, does it make sense for us to celebrate that holiday? It really doesn't. Let me give you an example why. Let's take a look at Passover. Okay, let's talk about Passover. What's the point of Passover? Why are we celebrating Passover? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Why are we celebrating? What's the reason we celebrate Passover? Anybody know why? Want to take a shot at it? Come on, go ahead.
We celebrate Passover to hold that memory of Yahushua, before that situation happened.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to take a shot at it? All right. We commemorate Passover because that was the time where the Most High slaughtered Egyptians, the firstborn of Egypt, and which caused us to be free. Now, let me ask you, should an Egyptian celebrate Passover? No, an Egyptian shouldn't celebrate Passover because Passover commemorates the slaughter of their people. An Egyptian in their right mind would not sit up there and be like, boy, it's great. It's time for Passover, my favorite time of the year. Because the Passover commemorates the slaughter of Egyptians, of the firstborn in Egypt. But that's a day where we sit down and actually have a meal. Now, why do we have a meal? Because that's the day where the Most High, that's our Independence Day. That's the day where the Most High, by his mighty hand, destroyed the firstborn of Egypt and made the Egyptians let us go. And guess what? We sit down and have a meal that day and celebrate. And we should. Because that is our Independence Day. That's our independence. So we should commemorate Passover. It's our victory. It's the same thing with Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving is the oppressor's victory over our people. We shouldn't celebrate that holiday. We shouldn't because we're pretty much what's the word I'm thinking of? Encouraging the oppressor's slaughter of our people. We should not sit down and have a meal on Thanksgiving. Let's give another thing. Like, do the British celebrate the 4th of July? I mean, maybe they do. I'm not sure, but I don't know if the British are sitting up there like, you know what? 4th of July is my favorite time of the year. But why does the oppressor celebrate the 4th of July? Go ahead, sister. That's a victory to them. That's the 4th of July is a time where the colonists over here, the oppressor colonists here, separated from the English. So they commemorate that. And guess what happened after that separation? They went to war. So I don't know if the British would commemorate the slaughter of their people. You know, I don't know if they would commemorate that. Because the 4th of July really celebrates not only the separation of the colonists from the British, it also commemorates the slaughter of all the British and the slaughter of us gaining the independence. Well, I don't want to say us. The oppressor gained independence. We ain't gained nothing. But, you know what I mean. So that's why the 4th of July wouldn't make sense for a celebration to somebody from Britain. It would make sense to the white oppressor here because he and his ancestors separated from it's an oppressor separating from an oppressor. So going back to Thanksgiving, it makes sense that the oppressor celebrates it. It's his victory over us and over our ancestors. We should not be celebrating Thanksgiving. It does not make sense because if we're celebrating Thanksgiving, we are disrespecting our people, the people of our tribes. We're disrespecting Israelites. And we're saying that slaughter of Israelites, the slaughter of the Pequots, the taking of Wampanoag lands, the beheading of King Philip, we're encouraging that when we celebrate Thanksgiving. I mean, somebody told me that, some people say, well, I just do it for the food. Okay, well, would you, think about all the lynchings that blacks had and they had a cookout after it. Should we commemorate that? Well, I'm just getting together for the food, I know they lynched blacks all on this day, but I'm just trying to get me a turkey. That would be a little weird because we know what would happen to those black lynchings. They would sit around and have a meal afterwards. And that's the spirit that the oppressor would have. He would sit around and have a meal afterwards. He'd have a meal afterwards and, and pretty much celebrate his victory. Now, where does this fall in biblically? The problem is that the Bible told us long ago how to deal with the oppressor. Osama Quinn was taking a gamble. Let's pull up Ecclesiasticus, I think 12 and 9. Let's look at that in the Apocrypha. Ecclesiasticus. Let's see if we can pull that up. Now, the thing is that Osama Quinn was in a dilemma. Massasoit, as some people call him, he was literally in a dilemma. Okay? He took a gamble. Okay? He took a gamble and, the gamble eventually did not go into his favor. Okay? He took a gamble because he was really trying to save his people, but he took a gamble with the heathen. You don't want to ever take a gamble with the heathen. Okay? You never want to trust the oppressor. Hopefully I'm in the right one. Ecclesiasticus, does it say never trust? What does it start out saying? Never trust that?
Start out saying in the prosperity.
Ecclesiasticus? Is it Ecclesiasticus 12?
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12.
Yep.
9.
Go to 10. Let me see if it says it in 10.
10, never trust.
There we go. We're right there. All right, we're right on target. All right, so we're going to look at Ecclesiasticus 12 and verse 10 to get an idea of really what we've learned from this Thanksgiving event. Okay, what have we learned? We've learned is that we can never, ever make an alliance with the heathen. Never. Because he's always going to turn around and go against us. Even when he sounds like he's saying the right thing, even though he sounds like he's saying, you're my friend, this is what they were saying to Osama Quinn and his people. We come in peace. You're our friends. The king respects y'all. Let's see what the Bible says. Go ahead.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10.
Go ahead.
Never trust thine enemy.
Never what?
Never trust thine enemy.
So what we can learn from this whole thing is that we can never trust our enemy. We can never trust our enemy. Even when he comes and makes it seem like he's our friend. We can never trust. Now we have to use wisdom. You can use wisdom when dealing with the enemy, because we all got to go to work with the enemy. We got to go to work with him. But we can never make an alliance and trust our enemy. And the Bible is going to say why. Keep going.
For like as iron rusteth.
For like as what?
Iron rusteth.
Just as like iron rusteth. So like an iron eventually, it can look a certain way, but as eventually, when the oxidation hits and the chemical reaction starts, the iron is going to begin to rust. Go ahead. As iron rusteth.
So is his wickedness.
So is his what?
Wickedness.
So is his wickedness. Just like iron is going to rust, just is the same thing as the oppressor's wickedness. He is going to show who he really is. Keep going.
Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed.
Now the oppressor has come. How did he usually come and destroy the natives? How did he? Go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
He normally started like real nice and pleasant with them and gain their trust.
Gain their trust. He always tried to find out the land. Well, what and what did the natives do? They always fed him, always made sure he lived through the winters, traded stuff with him. And if you notice, and this is what they were doing even to the Hamites, the oppressor would always take some cheap stuff and get better stuff when he was trading. He would take some cheap stuff, trade it with the natives, and he would get good stuff. It happened even with the Hamites over in Africa when he would go trade with them. They're trading with him gold. Actually, even with the Aztecs, they take gold, silver, and all that stuff. He's trading, some stuff that had really no value. And that's what he would do. Maybe the only thing was like the guns, the gunpowder. But other than that, he wasn't usually trading stuff that had a lot of value. Okay? But that's how he would come humble. And then a lot of times he would trade stuff that he knew would get the natives sick. They would trade furs that had, a virus or bacteria on it that he knew would outbreak and kill them. Biological warfare. They knew what they were doing. They would just, trade blankets and furs, give it to the natives, and a whole epidemic would break out in that village. But he knew what he was doing. Okay? So it's just like, as he humbles himself, tries to make it seem like your friend, he is going to eventually reveal who he really is. Keep going.
Yet take good heed and beware of him.
Beware of him. Okay? A lot of our native brothers, a lot of our Israelite brothers, and all these other, and even Judah, were not beware of the oppressor. They weren't, because he comes and has, he has words, and there's a scripture on that. We're going to go to that next in Psalm 55. How the oppressor approaches you. Keep going. No sweat.
And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a look. Salaki. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass.
Go ahead, keep going.
And thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away.
Rust altogether has not been wiped away. This is what the Most High is telling you how the oppressor is going to be. And we know when we could say, well, what about Becky? What about Mark? What about my heathen friends that I have? There will be a situation that will arise that shows that they never were your friend. Even if they're marching with you in the Black Lives Matter march, even if they're right there with. Actually, we've said this: the heathen that's a liberal is more dangerous than the conservative heathen. Actually, they're more dangerous because that heathen's going to be at your cookouts. He's going to be at your Black Lives Matter marches. He's going to be at your the weddings. He's going to wear the dashiki. He's going to wear the whatever. He's going to say, I think the black man is really, he's going to know more black history than you. Until the time is right, until it's time for him to strike, and he's going to destroy you. Somebody said it best. They said the conservative heathen sinks your ship, the liberal one consoles you as the ship is sinking. And that's really how it is. That's really how it is. They'll console you while the ship is sinking. Like they'll hold your hand and be like, we're making some progress. You haven't sunk yet. As the ship is sinking, they'll let you drown. The conservative will sink your ship. He'll torpedo your ship. But the liberal, the conservative, the liberal, whatever they call each other, they'll be, we're making some progress as the ship is sinking. And next thing you know, you'll drown. Okay? And that's the approach they don't make. Keep going.
Set him not by thee. Verse 12. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thine place.
And that's what happens. See, when you sit down and make an alliance with a heathen, what is he going to do? He's going to overthrow you. And he's going to stand in the place that you once stood. He's going to rule where you once ruled. Okay? Montezuma was over a powerful empire. And what did the conquistadors do? They stood where he once stood. They took over his area. They took the power and his power away. And how did they do it? They used enemy tribes to help. Okay? And actually, these were the tribes that, that the Aztecs were oppressing. So, of course, they're going to help the heathen. Of course they are. So, we gotta think about this, and this is why it's important that we gather ourselves together. See, Zephaniah 2:1 says, gather yourselves together, O nation undesired. This shows why we have to gather ourselves together. Because what the oppressor is going to do is he's going to find how we don't like each other and use it as a strength for himself. He's going to use that as a weapon. And that's why, we got to put our anger and differences aside. That's why. Because he's going to find, why do these two groups hate each other? And he's going to use it. He's going to befriend the one. You're my friend. I trust you. Yes, that group they're just evil people. Y'all get together. Y'all destroy that group of blacks, Hispanics, and Native. And then he's going to come after you. And that's what always happens. That's all happened. That's why most of the Native tribes were destroyed. Because of that. Or because of the diseases that he brought over. Keep going.
Lest he seek to take thine seat, and thou at the last remember my words.
Come on, keep going.
And be pricked therewith. Verse 13. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent?
Come on.
Or any such as come nigh wild beasts?
And pretty much, and that's what happened. The oppressor was like pretty much a serpent. He's been a serpent. He's a serpent in the garden. He always comes and he's subtle. He's very subtle. He's subtle. He's crafty. He's skilled at that. That's why, why do you think you got to get a lawyer to go to court against another lawyer? Because they're crafty people. They're crafty. And all those treaties that they made with the natives were crafty treaties. The oppressor always has a loophole around his treaty or around his laws. They always have a loophole. You'll be trying to make sense, and they'll always say, well, the law says this. Knowing that there's a loophole in the law. Knowing that. And that's what lawyers do. They know the loopholes. And they know the craftiness. That's why you got to get another oppressor to fight an oppressor in court. Because they know the craftiness of what they do. Of their laws and stuff. It's very crafty. It's there to deceive you. And it was there, and it deceived the natives, our native brothers. It deceived them. We got any more on that? Anything more on that? We could drop that. Let's go to Psalm 55. Okay? Psalm 55, and let's look at verse 21. We're just going to try to look at some more of the oppressor's character. All right, we just want to know the oppressor's character when it comes to these things. Okay, so that we will know how to carry it on. And that's why we got to come back in Israel and do what we're supposed to do. Because once we learn the nature of the oppressor, when we learn his nature and what he does, we don't want to make a covenant with him. We don't want to make an alliance with him. What it's going to make us do is go to those enemy tribes or those those people that we could thought were our enemies and make peace with them. That's what it's going to do, because then we'll find out, we'll be like, you know what? All of us are in the same boat when it comes to this oppressor. And that's the lesson that we need to learn from what our native brothers were going through. Okay? The Israelites. They were Israelites. Okay? All right, let's look at Psalm 55. Let's look at verse 21. This is the spirit. This is the spirit of the oppressor. Go ahead.
Psalms chapter 55, verse 21. The words of his mouth are smoother than butter.
Are what?
Smoother than butter.
When the oppressor talked to the natives, when he talked to the Wampanoags, it was smooth words. We come in peace. I'm your friend. You can trust me. They'll go so far, we will make an alliance. They'll shake on it. Sign this document here. But its words are smooth words. Smoother than, but it's like a smooth operator. Okay? And that's actually, if you look at Genesis 3, when it talks about the serpent, if you look at that in Hebrew, and in Hebrew, it actually said, when it says, in English it says the serpent was more crafty than any of the beasts, subtle than any of the beasts of the field. If you look at it in Hebrew, you can also read the serpent was more smoother than any of the beasts of the field. It's a smooth. He's smooth. He's a smooth creature. And that's how he talks to you. It's smooth. He says the words that you want to hear. He says the right things at the right time. It's smooth. Go ahead. So his mouth, what he says is smoother than butter. Go ahead.
But war was in his heart.
There's what?
War was in his heart.
What happened to the Pequots?
War was in his heart.
What happened to the Wampanoags?
War was in his heart.
What happened to the Narragansetts?
War was in his heart.
What happened to the Lakota?
War was in his heart.
War was on his heart when he was dealing with them. War was on his heart. And that is what happened. He talked to them, his words were smooth as butter, but war was on his heart. War was on his heart when he dealt with the Croatoans. War was on his heart. Okay, when he was dealing with the Powhatan nation. War was on his part when he dealt with the Algonquians. That whole tribe, the group of people. War was on his heart when he dealt with the Iroquois. War was on his heart. It was on his heart. And it was on his heart. War was on his heart when he dealt with the Apaches. War was on his heart when he dealt with the Aztecs. That was what happened. And this is what the Bible was speaking about. Keep going.
His words were softer than oil.
Words were softer than oil. His words were softer than oil. And it goes back to being smooth. Nice and smooth when he speaks to you. Smooth when he tells you, and it makes it sound like he's on your team. Very smooth. But then what happens?
Yet were they drawn swords.
They drawn swords. They drew swords on the Aztecs and guns. And they diseases. These are like just like warfare. Drawn swords. And they did this to our native brothers and our native sisters. They did this to us. Okay? And this is what we need to be careful of. This is why it's important to come back under the law, statutes, and commandments of the Bible. This is why it's important, because when you make an alliance with the heathen, when you make an alliance with him and think that he's your friend, thinking he's to help you, he is going to destroy you. He's not only going to destroy you, he's going to enslave you. And he's going to eventually kill you. He's going to eventually kill you. Or he'll find a way to throw you under the jail. Because you trusted him. You thought he was your friend. And this is what's happened. This is what would happen. All right? So let's look at one more thing. Well, we're going to look at a couple things. Let's actually look at Genesis 3. Okay, we're going to look at Genesis 3 and let's look at some characteristics of the heathen, and then we can just compare it. We can compare it to what what was going on in Thanksgiving time, and then we're going to see how Thanksgiving fits right into scriptures. Okay, and it fits right into what happened. Okay, go ahead. Let's go. Let's go ahead and look at it. Genesis 3, verse 1.
Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Most High God had made.
He was more subtle. He was very crafty. Okay, go ahead. You want to speak? Go ahead.
Well, I just realized something that I didn't realize. At the end of this verse, not at the end of that sentence, it said, which the Most High had made.
Con.
So it's just my
Con.
reference that makes it good. I mean, he makes it good, and he also makes it bad.
Con. Good point. Keep going.
And he said unto the woman, ye have God said. Is that yea?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ye have God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden.
Now, he's coming with smooth words. And what is he doing? He's playing on the woman's feelings and emotions. He's playing on, has God said you're going to eat of every tree? He's playing on her emotions. And why is he doing this? He's making her question what's already been told to her. He's questioning that. Okay? He's making her question that. Keep going.
And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden.
So the woman responds and says, what she was taught. This is what we were supposed to do. Okay, sounds good so far. She responded back like she should have. Keep going.
But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die.
Now, what's the message behind all of this? Now, pretty much, if you don't do what the Most High says, if you don't follow his laws, statutes, and commandments, you'll die. And this is why we're in the state today. Our condition is death. That is our condition. So we're strung out on drugs. We're living on top of each other in the hood. We're living in poverty. We got high blood pressure. We got HIV. We got AIDS. We got, high cholesterol. We got diabetes. Our families hate each other. We can't be in the same room as certain people. Our kids are, under the oppression of the school. It's death. And that's because the Most High said, if you do not do what I tell you, if you do not keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, you will die. You will die. Okay? And that's why he said, life or death, blessed or curse, choose life. If you choose the law, statutes, and commandments, you will live. Our people will be in a better condition. So Eve was repeating this. If we touch this, if we do what the Most High tells us not to do, we shall die. Go ahead, keep reading. Then let's find out what the craftiness of the oppressor says. Go ahead.
Verse 4, and the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Okay, that's where he said, you will not die. Pretty much, and why does he say that? Because and everybody knows there's an unwritten rule. I don't want to say it's a rule, but everybody knows this. When the oppressor says something, it's like law. Have you ever noticed, you'll say something, people will fight it? The oppressor will come around and say the same thing, and people take it as gospel. I don't know if I've been in that situation. A black man will say something. A black man will say, well, this X, Y, and Z. People will fight it tooth and nail. And it's so funny, sometimes it's your own people that do it. A black man will say something and get all this pushback, fighting. The oppressor will come around and say the same thing, and people take it as gospel. Don't even have to prove anything. Case in point. Ready? Y'all ready? God.
The oppressor says, what? We are Jewish. We are Jewish.
God.
Everybody, now, yeah, and really they are Jews because they're not really Jews. Jewish means you're not. But let's just take my point. Nobody argues. Nobody fights. Nobody says, "Hey, can you prove it historically or biblically?" Nobody says that. The black man comes right back around. We're the Jews of the Bible. Everything's going off now. Now we got media coverage. Now we got people having to pay fines. Now we got people to get in question. I'm serious. When the oppressor says something, it's taken as gospel. It's the same spirit back in the garden. That crafty beast said, "You will not die. You will not die." And what did the woman do? Now she had just heard. No, go ahead, sister. What did the woman do?
Believe.
And she believed him. The oppressor never has to prove anything with validity. Never. He just says it. It's gospel. We're the chosen people. I agree. That's how I agree. You're right. Black man will say, we're the actually true Jews of the Bible. What do you mean by that? And if you notice, every time the black man says it, we actually got biblical proof to back it up, historical proof. How come the Jewish man doesn't come out with a documentary to prove that he's really the chosen people of the Bible? Have you noticed he's never come out with a documentary? He's never done that. And if he has, maybe I haven't seen it. Because every time I turn around, all they refer to is the Holocaust. That's it. And then they'll make it seem like this shows that we, are the chosen people because we had an oppressor under the regime of the Nazis. And that's their proof that they are the oppressed people.
God.
That's their proof that they were the oppressed people, and that scripture's for them because they go into they talk about the Nazi regime. They never talk about what happened afterwards, and they got the land of Palestine right after that. They don't mention that. They don't mention that. Okay, but the black people in America, we can't be Jewish. I mean, we can't be Jews. We can't be. And then we got to go through all of this stuff and hoops and everything just to, But why don't he start showing it? But it goes right into the scripture. When he says something, it's gospel. When he says something, it's gospel. Let's keep going.
Verse 5. For God doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
And this is the attitude of the oppressor. The attitude of the oppressor, the way he says it now is through the media coverage and through everything we see. The oppressor really, really thinks that he speaks for the Most High. If you don't believe me, look what on the media. Every time we have a movie about the Most High, how does the Most High look? Looks like, go ahead. He looks like he's white, got blue eyes, and then they'll show a Yahweh Shai, and how does Yahweh Shai look? How does he look? Go ahead, sister, go ahead. How does Yahweh Shai look in the movies? Go ahead.
The same.
Same. Looks like blonde hair, blue eyes. The oppressor is telling you, just like you hear, that he speaks for God. He speaks for the Most High. He's the one that determines what God does or says because he really believes that he is God. He really believes that. He really believes that he is the one. He believes he's the chosen one. And that's why it goes back to even the Kyrie situation, the Nick Cannon situation, the Kanye West, because he feels like he is the chosen one. He feels like he's the one that has the power. He feels like he is the one that can speak on these things and not us. And that's why we got to gather ourselves together. Go ahead. Keep going.
Verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
And this is what happened. And people think, well, what does this have to do with Thanksgiving? This has everything to do with Thanksgiving. When you try to make an alliance with the heathen, when you try to negotiate with the heathen, he's going to cause you to disobey the Most High, and he's going to cause you to be destroyed. That's the point. He's going to cause you to follow after his ways, his customs, and he's going to cause you to be destroyed. This is the same thing that happened to the Wampanoags. They trusted the separatists. And what happened? And what happened? The separatists eventually put them under their laws, their guidelines, and they destroyed them. You're gonna say something? Go ahead, bro.
Con, I was just want to make an example of how homosexuality,
Con.
right? Like you said, with them trusting in the heathen,
Con.
making an alliance with him.
Con.
You know what I mean? By indulging in homosexuality, that is going to cause you to sin.
It's gonna cause you to sin. It's gonna cause you to be destroyed. And good. Excellent. Give him a hand for that. Good point. And it's gonna cause you to destroy. And this has everything to do with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving should be the example of what we should not do. If we want to really talk about the truth of the hidden meaning behind Thanksgiving, the meaning behind Thanksgiving is show us that we should never make an alliance and trust the heathen. Because what's going to happen is that when we make an alliance with the heathen, he's going to cause us to break the law, statutes, and commandments that the Most High set up for us. And it's going to cause us and put us into slavery. Have you noticed that every time Israel followed after other gods, what would happen? They would eventually be put into what? Slavery. Because they made a treaty with the enemies around them. They made an alliance. They trusted the people around them. And that's the same thing with Thanksgiving. Our brothers trusted. And I'm not blaming them because, like I said, Osama Quinn, he was in a tight state. Because he was warring with the Narragansetts. He took a gamble. He took a chance. Of course, it was the wrong chance. Because pretty much they were being destroyed once they trusted those colonists. Once they trusted the oppressor. And he destroyed them. And he destroyed their way of life. He destroyed their customs. And he just destroyed their heritage. And now everybody is sitting around the table eating a turkey on this day because we trusted the oppressor. Because of our ancestors trusting the oppressor and what he did. And that's what shows. So there should be a big lesson to us all that we cannot make a treaty ever with him. We can never trust him. We can never make an alliance with him. What we need to do is to make peace with those brothers and sisters that we're at war with. That's what we need to do. And hindsight is 20/20. But I'm sure if those brothers saw it then, they probably wouldn't have made peace with them enemy tribes, those Narragansetts, or they would have probably just found another way, and they'd have known what type, how this heathen really was. They probably would have said, well, and eventually they did kind of pair up in King Philip's War because they saw all their lands were being taken. They saw that. They saw what it wasn't. We'll fight this tribe and then we'll help this tribe out. They saw that all their land. That was the point. Is to take all lands. Was to take them all. So go ahead.
I just want to say, it seems like every holiday reminds you of a bad quality of the oppressor. Christmas is how much he lies. That's what Christmas reminds you of, that he's alive.
And if you actually look in the Apocrypha, I gotta see. It's actually the beginning of the Apocrypha about Christmas, and it might be. Maccabees, and it might be one around the 50s. It actually shows around the Christmas holiday how they were like slaughtering Israelite children, around that same time. So really, if we really want to talk about Christmas, that kind of talks about how they were slaughtering Israelite children. It's at the beginning. Maccabees, it's like one and somewhere between the 40s and 50s, and they talked about in the month of Keslev, and they said around the 26th day, and Keslev is in December. And and I think it was like the 25th, and they slaughtered Israelites on the 25th of Keslev. Well, that's around December, and if you really think about it, a lot of these holidays are doing with the destruction of us. If you really think about it, a lot of these holidays are doing with the destruction of our people. It has to do with the destruction. Go ahead, you want to say something?
Black Friday.
Yeah, come on, right.
Labor Day.
It has to do with destruction of our people.
Everything.
Thanksgiving. Come.
The 4th of July, in a sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 4th of July, absolutely. Absolutely. The stuff that they celebrate, even people celebrate, the Battle of the Alamo. how the people of Texas stood their ground. Well, the Alamo was all about slavery. People want to talk about that. Because the Mexicans at that time didn't want slavery. And that's why they were moving people into Texas, because they wanted slavery there. That's really the truth behind the Alamo. But they don't want to talk about it. A lot of this stuff has to do with the destruction of our people. And that's why they was fighting the Mexicans. The Mexicans didn't want them. Santa Anna did not want them to bring slavery into Texas. That's why they were fighting the Mexicans, because they didn't want slavery. But they make it seem like these guys were standing for greatness. That was defending the Alamo. These guys like slavery. That's what it was. That's really what the Alamo was about. People don't want to talk about it, but that's what it was about slavery. So that's what I say. If you think about the celebration of a lot of these days, it has to do with our destruction. That's why we shouldn't be celebrating these holidays. Well, I just want the turkey. So what are you saying when you say that? You're saying a turkey is more important than your people? I guarantee you no other group would celebrate a holiday of the destruction of their people. No other group's going to do that, folks. Let's just be honest. If there was a day of the slaughter of Chinese, I guarantee the Chinese are not going to be at the table that day eating a turkey. The Chinese would probably boycott. What's so funny? The Chinese would probably boycott stores that sold items in recognition of the destruction of their people. That's what the Chinese probably do. They probably would boycott it. Don't buy any of those items, because that's talking about the destruction of our people. That's what we as blacks and natives and Hispanics need to start doing. Boycott these stores that are selling items that celebrate the destruction of our people. We really should. Really. Because no other group's going to do that. They ain't going to talk about, I guarantee you, Jews are not celebrating eating a turkey on the day that, Kristallnacht happened? When those Nazis went in there and destroyed Jewish stores? I guarantee you the Jews aren't sitting around having a turkey on that day to commemorate that day. There was a time, I can't remember exactly, it was in, when the Nazis, it was called Kristallnacht, I might be saying it wrong, when they went around and just destroyed Jewish businesses, broke them up during the Nazi regime. That's a horrible day for the Jewish man. I'm sure he's not eating a turkey on that day. Okay? Sure he's not ordering whatever on that day or eating and having it, I'm sure he hates that day. We should hate Thanksgiving. Really. We should really hate Thanksgiving. We really should. We should really hate what the oppressor did to our people on that day, to the point where we really should boycott it. If they're going to boycott Kyrie for sending a link that day, we need to boycott all these businesses that are selling turkeys and making money off the days that destroy our people. We need to start doing that. And we need to start saying that's anti-Semitic. That's what we need to start doing. Thanksgiving is an anti-Semitic holiday. It's anti-Semitic. It's a holiday that hates our people. And what we need to do is start bringing these people on the forefront. Just like they owe our people an apology. They owe our people an apology. That's what we should start doing. If Kyrie can't send a link and got to pay millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars for sending a link, that people need to be paying blacks, Hispanics, and natives billions of dollars of what they've done to destroy them. How they destroyed the Wampanoags tribe. How they destroyed all those native tribes. They need to be paying billions of dollars. They send in money to Israel every year. They need to send money to the projects every year. They need to send money. You got questions? Go ahead, sister. They need to send money to the projects. They need to send money to black schools every year. And I'm not talking about a grant or nothing like that, what you got to apply for. I'm not talking about that. I don't think the country of Israel is applying for all the money that they're sending. They're freely giving them money. They need to freely give money to blacks, Hispanics, and natives of the destruction they've done. Go ahead, you got a question, bro?
Somebody had a question about Psalms 104 and 5.
Psalms 104 and 5? Let me go. Let's pull that real quick. See if I pull that. Psalms 104 and 5.
I assume that how Christians use this scripture for Thanksgiving.
Okay, let's look at it. Go ahead and read it. Oh, 4 and 5. Let me pull it up first. Go ahead and turn. Go ahead and turn to that.
Psalms 100, verse 4.
Actually, let's start in Psalms 100, verse 1. Let's read. This is actually a short psalm. Let's read it all. Let's go. Go ahead. Whenever you're ready.
Make a joyful noise unto the Most High, all ye lands.
Okay, so it's saying make a joyful noise unto the Most High, all ye lands. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Serve the Most High, with gladliness, come before his Most High, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves.
Okay.
We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture.
Okay, so let's talk about context before we get into the question here. The context is this is a psalmist, and he's talking about to make a joyful noise. So he's in context. He's talking about making a joyful noise to the Most High, all ye lands. And it says, now let's look at verse 2. It says, serve the Most High with gladness. Now when we talk about serving, what does the word serving mean? Serving means when you serve somebody, you're doing what they tell you to do. You're keeping their laws. So let's get in context before we talk about 4 and 5. What was the actual question first, actually? You know the question they asked on the line?
It was just
okay. Well, we'll break it down. I don't know if it's a connection with Thanksgiving.
because of it having
Thanksgiving in it.
Yeah.
Come on, we'll get to that. So it says, serve the Most High with gladness. So you got to serve him with gladness. That means you got to be glad to keep these laws, statutes, and commandments. Okay. Come before his presence with singing. Okay. Now verse 3 says, know ye that the Most High, he is the power. Okay, so another thing, let's point out here, it says the Most High is the power. So that means if you're admitting that the Most High is the power, you're following what he says to do. He is the power. That means you're not going to put yourself under somebody else's power. Okay? That means you're not going to be doing what somebody else is doing. You're going to do what the Most High says. Keep going. All right, let's go to verse 4.
Verse 4. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving.
Go ahead.
And into his courts with praise.
Go ahead.
Be thankful unto him and bless his name.
So it says enter his gates with thanksgiving. So we look at the context. Let's break this down, and then we're going to see why this has nothing to do with the holiday Thanksgiving. Okay, let's look at this. It says enter in his gates with thanksgiving. Now, if we look at a historical context, we're thinking about what David or whoever wrote this song is talking about the tabernacle, talking about the temple, entering his gates, pretty much going to where the Most High is, entering his gates with thanksgiving. Okay, and you think about that time, you know, how do they show Thanksgiving? They show Thanksgiving giving sacrifices. They show Thanksgiving by giving peace offerings. They show Thanksgiving by doing what the Most High said to do. That's how you enter his gates with Thanksgiving.
Come.
Go ahead.
Verse 5. For the Most High is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations.
Okay, so his truth endureth for all generations. So you're entering his gates with thanksgiving, because when you come before the Most High, you should have an attitude of wanting to, you should have, like Command General Honor teaches us, you should have the attitude of brotherhood. Thanksgiving in this context also means the attitude of brotherhood. So you should have an attitude to love your brother when you enter. You should have that's why we dap each other up in the UPK. That's why we greet each other. That's entering before the Most High with thanksgiving. So it has nothing to do with the criminal holiday. Because the context says, serve the Most High with gladness. You're not serving the Most High keeping Thanksgiving. In fact, we're going to turn to this too. Let's see if I can find it. There's a precept that the Most High tells Israel that you are not to worship him like the heathen nations. See, what Israel's problem was historically is, people think that the Israelites, when they were disobeying the Most High, it wasn't that they were dismissing the Most High. They were serving the Most High like the other nations would worship their God. And that's something the Most High hated. That's where religion comes from. I don't know if this makes sense. Anybody, does that confuse anybody? So Israel, when they were sinning against the Most High, it's not that they were, dismissing what the Most High said. They were worshiping the Most High like the other nations worship their gods.
Con on the one con.
And that's the same attitude we would have if we celebrate Thanksgiving and try to put the Most High's name on it. Does that make sense? Like basically saying, well, the Bible has Thanksgiving in it, so I'm going to use Thanksgiving as a day to be thankful to the Most High. You are not to worship the Most High the way you think you should worship Him. Let me make that clear. You are to worship the Most High the way He tells you to worship Him. Case in point. How many people have children here? I mean, there's children here.
God.
Your child's not going to obey you the way they think they should obey you.
God.
Right? You're going to tell your child how to obey you. And that's people's problem. People want to worship the Most High the way they think they should worship Him. That's what Israel's problem was historically. And I heard them say, well, I'm going to celebrate Thanksgiving because I'm going to use this time to be thankful to the Most High. The Most High never told you to celebrate Thanksgiving. You want to please the Most High, verse 2, and serve Him, do the law, statutes, and keep the feast days. Go to Leviticus 23. That's how you can serve Him with Thanksgiving. So Leviticus 23 shows you how to serve the Most High. Let's actually go there. And then we're going to show when the Most High said how not to. Let's go to Leviticus 23. Do you really want to enter His gates for Thanksgiving? And when do they enter His gates for Thanksgiving? They enter during the feast days. We're going to see that. Let's go to Leviticus 23.
Verse 1?
Yeah, let's go to Leviticus 23. Go ahead, verse 1.
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1. And the Most High spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Most High,
keep going,
which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts.
This is how you serve the Most High with Thanksgiving and gladness. This is how you enter in His gates with Thanksgiving. Is you do what the Most High says. Let's go to verse 4. Go ahead. Verse 4.
Verse 4. These are the feast days of the Most High, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons.
The Most High is telling you how to enter His gates with Thanksgiving and enter His courts with praise. It's by keeping His feast days. Keep going.
Verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Most High's Passover.
Keep going.
Verse 6. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Most High. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread.
Go ahead.
Verse 7. And the first day ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein.
Now this is how you enter the Most High's gates with Thanksgiving. With Thanksgiving in your heart. And this is how you enter His courts with praise. Not saying, well, I'm going to worship the Most High the way I think I should. That was Israel's problem. And let's get down to the bottom. Now, if you read through all of these feast days, I don't have time to go through all of them, you won't see Thanksgiving Day in there. Okay, you won't see that day in there. Let's go down to the bottom. Let's go to verse 37. Go ahead.
Verse 37. These are the feast days of the Most High, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Most High, a burnt offering, and a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon His day.
This is how they came. This is how they entered His gates with Thanksgiving. This is what they were doing. Keep going. Go down to verse 39, and let's read through verse 40. Keep going.
39 through
verse 40. Go to verse 39.
Going on in one con. Verse 39. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Most High 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Verse 40, and ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of brook, and ye shall rejoice before.
You shall what? Go ahead. You shall what?
And ye shall rejoice before the Most High.
You shall what? Say it again.
Rejoice before the Most High.
Let's do with the Thanksgiving, entering the courts with Thanksgiving. Keep going.
Rejoice before the Most High, our God, your God, 7 days.
This is how you enter the gates with Thanksgiving. You do what the Most High says. And that's how you rejoice. You don't keep a day because you and put the Most High's name on it. Go ahead, sister, you got a question?
Okay, so in verse 37,
Go ahead.
it say a sacrifice. What is our sacrifice?
Well, now Yahweh Shai was our ultimate sacrifice.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to, actually, our sacrifices right now, we weren't like, as Paul said, making something a living sacrifice.
Okay.
Yeah, we living sacrifices when you don't keep Thanksgiving. Now you made yourself a living sacrifice.
Con on one con.
Because that's like, because after Yahweh Shai, we don't have to, sacrifice. Because the problem with the sacrificial system was their heart wasn't, some people's heart wasn't in it. Go ahead, sister.
So I feel like when they were sacrificing back in the day, they're just like, oh, I'm gonna smoke cigarette today. Let me get my land.
Yeah, that's what they would have the stuff lined up because their hearts weren't in it. See, that's why the new covenant, the renewed covenant, has to do with who's really wants to obey it. And he's gonna put his laws in our hearts and minds, as we were talking about.
Con on one con.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is how you rejoice before the Most High with Thanksgiving. Not saying I'm just going to keep a holiday and put the Most High's name on it. The Most High actually hates that. That's actually religion. The Most High hates that. He hates that. All right? And this is what, and then it says, you shall keep this throughout your generations. Okay? So to say, I don't know what the question was, but, hopefully I'm answering that question. Just because the scripture says Thanksgiving does not mean you celebrate a holiday called Thanksgiving. Okay, you have to worship the Most High the way He says it. Let me try to find that precept in 1 second. Try to find that precept. Oh, maybe it's in Deuteronomy. Let's see. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's go to Deuteronomy verse 1. 12 verse 1. Okay?
Con on one con. Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 1.
Go ahead.
These are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land,
Go ahead.
which the Most High God of thine fathers giveth thee to possess it,
Go ahead.
all the days that ye live upon the earth. Verse 2, ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods.
Stop right there. The Most High told Israel when they came into that land, you are to tear down the places where the other nations serve their gods. Now, why would the Most High say that? Why? Go ahead.
Can you repeat your question?
So when the Most High told Israel to go into the land, He said to tear down the places, all the places where the nations serve their gods. Why would He want them to tear down the places where the nations serve their gods? Go ahead.
Because He doesn't want. Because He doesn't want to be associated with other gods. He wants them to destroy you. I think I was that term.
No, I think you're on the right track. He did not want Israel. Go ahead.
He did not want Israel to get confused of their gods.
Absolutely. That's what will cause confusion. That will cause confusion. You got the God over here, but then you got Yahweh telling Israel to do this. You got two places. That's actually like the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
It's a mix. It's a mixture. He didn't want them to be confused. He said, tear it down. Don't want it to exist. There wouldn't be no confusion. Okay, and that's why there's confusion in Israel today. Because people don't know what to do. People don't even know what gender to be now. Too much confusion. You know why? Because we compromised, we made alliances, and we made treaties with these other groups. And when you make treaties and you make an alliance with the groups, you become confused. You don't even know what the Most High law statute looks like. Keep going.
Slaki, I was at
I think we're on verse 3. We go to verse 3.
verse 3. Come on, one, come.
Verse 3, go ahead.
Verse 3. And ye shall overthrow their altars,
Go ahead.
and break their pillars,
Go ahead.
and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven image of their gods, and destroy the names of them out that place.
And the Most High doesn't want to be associated with. Keep going.
Verse 4. Ye shall not do so unto the Most High your God.
But say it again.
Ye shall not do so unto the Most High your God.
Christmas, go ahead.
Ye shall not do so unto the Most High your God.
Thanksgiving, go ahead.
Ye shall not do so unto the Most High your God.
July, this is showing the Most High. You shall not do the same things as what the Most High says unto your God. That's why we shouldn't celebrate Thanksgiving. The Most High does not want us to do the same things that these other nations are doing. Now, let me say this, okay? Now, if you still feel like Thanksgiving is a holiday that you should worship, and you are Black, Hispanic, and Native, just know you're not worshiping the God of the Bible. You are worshiping the power of the heathens. Case in point. Because that is something that they do. They worship, they have a worship, or they do things a certain way. They slaughter Blacks, Hispanics, and Natives and make a picnic out of it to honor their power. And if you're doing that, then you're honoring what they do. Now, even if you say, well, I'm going to be thankful to the Most High, he just said, read it again. You shall what?
Ye shall not do so unto the Most High your God.
There we go. Okay? You shall not do the same thing. Okay? And case in point. Case in point, you are to not worship you are not to worship the Most High the way these other nations worship their gods. Okay? Alright, let's go to another one real quick. Let's go to Deuteronomy 12. It's the same thing, we're in 12. Let's go to Deuteronomy 12, verse 30. Let's top it off with this scripture. Let's top it off with this scripture. This is why you should do Thanksgiving. Let's go to Deuteronomy 12 and verse 30. Same chapter.
Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them.
Go ahead, he's talking about the other nations. Keep going.
After that they be destroyed from Salaki. After that they be destroyed from before thee.
And let's see what the Most High says. Go ahead.
And that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods?
He said, don't even inquire. How did these nations serve their gods? Well, how did they keep Thanksgiving? How did they keep Christmas? He said, do not inquire about that. Do not inquire about that. Okay? Actually, go to verse 31. What does he say?
Thou shalt not do so unto the Most High thy God.
You shall not do it unto the Most High their God. Go ahead, keep going. Finish it off.
Come.
Actually, just read the next. Go ahead. Because they.
You said because.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading wrong. Go ahead. Keep going.
For every abomination to the Most High which he hateth, have they done unto their gods.
Every abomination that they practice, he hated. The Most High hates Thanksgiving. The Most High hates Christmas. The Most High hates these holidays. He hates them. Do not inquire and ask yourself, well, how are they keeping? And then try to and do not do that, because then you're going to try to worship the Most High in the way that the heathens are worshiping their gods. And guess what? You're worshiping a false god.
Con out of one con.
That's really, it's idolatry. Go ahead, sis, you got a question?
No, you just said what I was going to say.
Hey, that's idolatry. That's straight up idolatry. That's why you should not. That's why, yes, you see the word Thanksgiving. Don't just assume that you're going to use the word term Thanksgiving and then celebrate a holiday that's talking about the massacre of our people. Doesn't fit, folks. It doesn't fit. All right? And with that, we have the ISUPK coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Command of General Yohana. We have classes 5 days a week, from 7 to 9, Monday through Friday. Then we have Sabbath class on Saturday, from 10 to 12. I suggest, hopefully I encourage, if you're a Black, Hispanic, or Native, to come and learn under the tutelage of Command of General Yohana, and learn about these laws, statutes, and commandments so that our nation can turn back around and not keep erring in the side of celebrating holidays that the Most High does not want us to celebrate. And that, I'm going to turn it over to Priest and Officer 50 for around the come.
This is the security announcements. We are the ISUPK out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or a sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After this 6 months period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers chapter 18, verse 21, and Malachi chapter 3, verse 8 through 10, which means in Hebrew, Ma'ashara. 10% of every penny of any increase the Most High gives to the charity department or teacher. Priest funds. Free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like to give. Up and coming holy convocations is Hanukkah, right? Remind Akims and Akwathiums to check on social media such as ISUPK, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for ISUPK events and materials. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he is to start wearing all black, which includes boots, black boots, shirts, pants, headbands, or scarf. All right, now we're gonna get one courtesy salute to the teacher, Amadium Shabbat, Amadium Barak, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Barakatah,
Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Barakatah,
Yahweh Matah, Sar, which means turn,
Sister
Amadium. Now we're going to give one courtesy salute to the sisters. Amadium Shabbat, Amadium Barak,
Yahweh Shamar Alatam Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah.
Yahweh Shema Alalam Ba'Shema Yahweh Shah.
Yahweh Matah.
Yahweh Matah. Class dismissed.